Am I in the center? Okay. Hey, what's up? Welcome to my second video. So yeah, I couldn't. I was struggling to get around recording this video, but then here we are. My wife was on my neck. It's good to have someone to motivate you. So, first video, I was told that I assumed everybody watching the video knew who I was. So I think this follow-up video more of would encapsulate me, and then I decided to make it a story about how I got here, how I got here in my career, how school has been, or school was, and then the decisions that got me here, basically. So yes, if you don't already know, my name is Hope Dorkanu. I'm a Ghanaian, currently residing in the UK, precisely London. How I got here. So basically, it all started when I was in jail. So, I don't know, but yeah. Why are you looking at me? Okay. So yes, it all started way while back. So maybe we should go a little bit back. Basically, JHS before I started, before I wrote BC. I hadn't given this much thought, actually. I think it was my wife that pointed out that, I have told her some things that she found interesting. So basically, my origin story, and then she thought it wise that it would be nice for me to put that out there. So back in junior high school, if you don't know what junior high school is, some people still call it middle school in the UK, I think. And so back in junior high school, before our main standard exams, which was BC, Basic Education Certificate Examination, I was actually very dumbfounded on, not dumbfounded, no, the wrong word. I was very confused as to what I wanted to read, what I wanted to become as a person, and then what I wanted to do generally when I grew up. So I think three teachers from my junior high school, which was Great Liberty Preparatory School. You have no idea where it is because it's one small school in Dansuman bases somewhere. So three teachers independently called me and sat me down. I don't know if they did this for every student, but three teachers who I would consider some of my favorite teachers, including one who did not call me down, but I spoke to him most of the time. But three teachers called me separately and then asked me what I wanted to do when I left the school. That was like in 2014, right before the BC. They called me and then they asked me what I wanted to do. Since I've been a kid, I have said forever that I wanted to be a bank manager. Wait, did I ever tell you this? No. Okay. So basically, if there is any record anywhere that would tell you like what my aspirations were as a 15-year-old, as a kid, 7-year-old, 10-year-old, every single essay I wrote write about myself, write about yourself, every single one had, I wanted to be a bank manager or a businessman on them. So I think when the teachers called me, they asked, what do you want to do? I just said, I want to go read business or read business admin later in life. And then all three teachers were very surprised. Were very surprised. And then I was like, what else is there? Because I wanted to make as much money I wanted as a kid. I still thought like this. So then they sat me down and they kind of told me where the direction of the direction of the world is going towards, computing A, B, C, and D, and that being a doctor is not going to be as prestigious as we thought, right? When I was growing up, because being a doctor is quite prestigious still. But then they made a point that, the world is heading in a direction that I should, walk down the path of. when they were telling me this, they were offering me to read IT. I should do something around IT. I should do something around computing. And then so the first teacher was like, do something around IT. And I was super confused. I didn't know where to start from. So the next two teachers called me. The next two teachers actually sat together and then called me because I think that was Magdalene, Madam Meg. Yes, Madam Meg, and then Sir Fatal. Two teachers who were close. They were not close. They were just like people who were in JHS with us, and then they taught us. So both of them called me, and then they sat me down. They were like, "What do you want to do?" And I still told them business because I didn't understand what IT was. So then they broke it down, and they were like, "Oh, this A, B, C, and D is what we think you should do because we seem to see your strength in IT, right?" And then they were like, "Yes, if you want to do IT, you should do IT." And then that was when those two teachers I was actually quite close to. So when they said you should do IT, I was like, "What do you mean?" I didn't understand what it meant. So they were like, "Oh, so basically you should go to school for computer science later in uni, and then the best route for you to do that is to go to school and then read science, and go to school and read science. So go to school and read science." And then I was like, okay, then after that, then what? And they were like, computer science in uni, and then you can become a software engineer or hardware engineer or whatever. It was still fairly new to me. Bear in mind, at this time, I didn't own a computer. I didn't know, like, I knew what a computer was, but I didn't own one. So, like, I wasn't quite versed. I wasn't, like, coding when I was, like, 7. I didn't know what this was. The best I knew was how to create a file and how to create a folder, right? So, fast forward after that, I got admission to study in Keta Senior High. And then...
That wasn't your first school. You were transferred there.
Yes, I was transferred there. That was true. So the school I had was Okuapeman Senior High. The reason why I wanted to go there was because my senior, one of the guys I looked up to, Nana Safo. If you have seen this video, yes, I used to look up to you. Maybe you didn't know that, but I used to look up to you. And then one of the reasons why I wanted to go to Okuapeman was because he was there, right? So I won. Is it Okuapeman? I've forgotten. I think.
Maybe, I don't know if Infantimai.
No, it's not Infantimai or Infantimai. I think it's Okuapeman school. So he was there, and then I wanted to go there. So I got it, and then somebody slighted me during the registration. I don't want to talk about that because it shaped my view on authority figures and how damaging an authority figure can be to you. But someone still from the same high school, junior high school, actually did something that really infuriated me. So basically, for Okuapeman, when I got the admission for Okuapeman, it was for business, even though I wanted to read science because the other teachers had told me to read science. And then when I went to look at the actual registration form, like that was what was put there: business, and then science for my third choice, I think. So I was infuriated, and then there was a whole lot of noise, blah blah blah. And then my mom was sort of happy because she didn't want me to go to Okuapeman. So she was like, okay, then we are going to try and get admission for you in Keta Senior High, and then we'll see how it goes. And then we had a whole falling out, me and my mom, but that's a story for another day. We had a whole falling out, but eventually I went to Keta Senior High, and then so at this point, I think I went to Keta Senior High, and then I enrolled in science, and then my main elective was elective ICT, which was a relatively new topic or relatively new subject in the school. So I think from there I tried my hardest because I found that I liked computers and then how they may or may not work, especially programming. The hardware I didn't care for, right? Hardware stuff was like going over my head. You had to know electricity, voltages, and stuff like that, which nobody liked. I liked, but it wasn't a thing that like I was totally good at. In fact, I think in physics I really didn't like electricity. Electricity was something that like was eluding me a lot with all the Kirchhoff's law and whatever. But yeah, so I think after doing IT, I graduated with relatively good results and then ended up in University after 1 year break. Within that 1 year break, I got my first ever PC, working PC, my first ever working PC. And then I was able to, do things, experiment a little bit, because with my knowledge from high school, senior high school, I could write an HTML file. I could write an HTML code that would display on the web. So when I got my PC, it was nice. It was refreshing. I got it, and then I was working as a secretary in one random guy's shop for about a year. And then within that time, I spent some time doing some stuff like HTML, some CSS, which I didn't know a lot, and then a little bit of JavaScript. Then I ended up in university. I'm going to tell you point blank, university was very difficult for me. In part, I suspect that I may have some learning disorder, because university was very difficult for me. I couldn't sit through like a 2-hour lecture without getting distracted. It was really intense for me. But then I always tried to sit in front, which sort of helped. I always tried to sit in front, try to pay attention, tried my hardest to pay attention, but I was always distracted. I could go into a lecture, come out and not know like half of what has been said. Except for the programming classes, of course, because the programming classes you get a little bit of hands-on, and then the logic just appealed to me. So I think in uni was when I was learning programming a bit, but not fully. I was still figuring out a lot of things, and then I was notorious for not going home after the university takes a break. When we're on vacation, I don't go home. I just stayed on campus because one, free Wi-Fi, that I just like to use, and it helped me learn a lot. In 2019, I think, 2019, ending of 2019, I went back to Accra in one log back, and then I met a high school friend, Chima. I had met a high school friend who I hadn't seen in a while, so I think we got up to conversations, and then I asked him, "Oh, where is he now? Is he in school?" And then this guy told me he was working. So I was quite surprised. I was like, "Oh wow, like you are working? Why? Did you go to school? Did you fast track?" No, we're chopping it up. And then he was like, "Oh no, he just focused on programming and then worked hard and then got a programming job." And then I was very surprised, because up until then I actually thought that you needed a degree, you needed a certificate to do any sort of programming at all. I wasn't taking coding that's religious until that interaction with Chima. And then he was really doing well for himself, I would say. Or that was what I saw. He was living alone, living life. I was like, oh, this is something I would want for myself. So I think that was where I asked him what the industry looks like. And then I think that was the important step for me. Like, he was like, well, what's the industry looking like? And then he gave me the gist of it, like, oh, he's doing mobile development, and Flutter is the whole new rave, because companies want cross-platform single code base development, so that they can build and publish to different code bases at the same time, which up until that point I hadn't done much of mobile development. I had done some game development, but not mobile development. So I picked up mobile development, and then on vacations now, sometimes when I wanted to come back to Accra, I would just go back and then stay with Chima. So my mom would be say this a lot. She has been saying that recently, like during my whole senior high school and uni years, I didn't stay with her, or I didn't interact much. We didn't interact much because I was off doing a lot of things on my own, and not coming home, staying with other family members who are far away, staying with friends, and in the uni case, coming home to stay with Chima most of the time. So the interaction was quite less. But I was doing that for a reason, because I was like, I have to get a job. My school fees, it takes some difficulty to pay. It takes some difficulty to feed myself in uni as well. So I just focused on that one thing. I just focused on learning Flutter and then just getting good at it. And then surprisingly, it came quite easy. Sure, like, getting it up and rolling quick came quite easy. In 4 months, 5 months, I was quite comfortable writing Flutter code and then writing mobile apps. And then I think from there, I got a recommendation from Chima to like a couple of people. One of the first places I interviewed for was eCampus app. I think you can still find it on the App Store if they are still running eCampus app. It was an e-learning platform. At this time, I was in third year uni. Yes, I was in third year uni, my final semester. So when I got a job for eCampus, I was excited. It was paying about 1,500 Ghana cedis a month. And then I was excited. So, I was balling in uni. But,
Then I think you should understand that you had to just communicate that you had to mix up. You had to be intentional about your life. But people think, because for people they're saying like, this thing just happened to align for you.
Well, yes and no. So let me talk about that for a little bit. When I say that I don't go home, for me that is a sacrifice, because
people stay in university and don't go home, but they don't do what you did.
Okay, fair enough. To be fair, my uni life was social life was really shit.
Even in SHS, like.
Yes, I didn't have
control of your life.
Yes. So going back to SHS, there were a lot of things that happened that I may not talk about. But there was one turning point event that made me start focusing on my life, and that was a heartbreak. That was sort of a heartbreak. And then I think even before then, I had noticed I come from a relatively rough neighborhood in Dansoman. So when anytime I go back from SHS and I go home, I see things going on. Like I see like people that I may have seen growing up with. I would see them not going to school anymore, giving themselves to the streets, I would say, which may or may not be a bad thing to some people. But for me, when I saw that, I was like, nah, this is like a cycle that perpetuated, because unfortunately, I had a family member who also gave himself to the streets. I grew up with him. He was a cousin I saw as a big brother. And then, so like when I saw that, I was like, nah, this is a cycle that I wouldn't like to repeat, right? And then maybe that played a part in me not liking to come back to that environment, because I realized that environment was really bad. Because even when I after uni and I went back to the environment, I saw people I grew up with, and I cannot believe that this is where they are now, like, or they've given themselves to the system. So I wanted to break myself out of that. So my social life was really bad. I wasn't interacting much. People thought I speak to a lot of people, but I didn't. My social life was quite bad. I didn't go out much. And it's still, a thing that I have to contend with now. It has shaped the way I think about social life. And in uni, can you believe I've not been to a single house party or a single party in uni? Because I sort of thought that was like a waste of time, and two, most often than not, when there was a party or something, I had code to write. I realized that I was doing something that would give me some sort of knowledge. I would be working on a project that I thought was interesting, or I would be learning something specific. So I would be hearing all the noise in the background and then not be there, but it didn't move me much. So about the first job that I got, eCampus, I got that, and then not long after that, a couple of months later, I got interviewed for Achieve, the Achieve app. They were looking for. They were technically not looking for a developer. I think this is where emphasis on communication and networking is really good, because, like I said, after I met Chima, like I realized I needed to do a lot. So when the opportunity for Achieve had opened, Chima was working there, and then someone was being interviewed. So I think in the room, I was in the room when Chima was interviewing the person online, and then he passed me the interviewing question and was like, "Oh, see if you can solve this." And then I think I was able to solve it and like quickly enough, because as at that point I had written a lot of code. Like I had written quite a lot. Every day I was trying to do something. So when the question came, it was quite easy and a breeze to go through. So then I think Chima was like, "Oh, if you can do this, then I should recommend you to his supervisor ? Who was Stefan Frolic." Yeah. So Stefan was told about this, and then he was also like, "Oh, if you can do this, then let's set up an interview for the next day." So the next day I was interviewed. Relatively simple question. I was able to solve that, and I was given my first corporate job, because technically the first one was a startup that I was just hired onto. So I got my first corporate job, which was a startup corporate, Achieve. And then, yeah, in fourth year, I was a software engineer, full-time software engineer with stand-up. I had to do stand-up. I had deliverables. I had to write code. I had to do this, that, and the third. And then if you've been to uni and then you've been in fourth year before, imagine that plus a full-time job. That was what I was in. And then with all my learning disabilities, I think I have learning disabilities. My inability to stay focused in class. I couldn't go to class. I would miss all my morning lectures. I would not even know that there was a test going on. I would be told I would have to be rushed to campus and then take some tests. I would sometimes go to the test and not know what I had learned, but then I would just go and sit for it. And then I think I told my parents or my mom that I wanted to quit the school because it didn't make sense to me anymore. I was making money, which I thought was impressive money as at the time, which was like right after COVID, right? It was during my COVID time that I did all the coding and then the learning. So right after COVID, when I got the job, I was like, this, I should quit school because it's really putting a stress on me. I couldn't focus and all that. But then my mom made a statement that stuck with me. And then she was like, we sent you to school for a purpose. Even though you have a job now, we sent you to school for a purpose. You have to finish the school and then bring me the certificate, because I sent you to school for certificate and then that certificate is mine. So I think that stuck with me. I was like, which is a fair statement. So I stuck with the school. I finished. I finished. And then, I continued with my coding and stuff, and then here we are now, some years later, which is crazy to say, but yeah. So I basically that's me in a nutshell. I think maybe I shouldn't speak about. There will be a different video on how I was able to land a job and then get to London. But then so far, that has been the life of me. Anytime I look back, I find it interesting. I find it nostalgic to look back on what has happened, a lot of things that have transpired, and then I think that more and more, I realize that sometimes it's not all about opportunity, which, to be fair, I've had some opportunity. It's sometimes about preparation. Like, when you are prepared enough and then the opportunity meets you, then you are lucky. Because if the opportunity came and then you are not prepared, then it may slip out of your fingers. But then I don't believe that fully. Recently, I've not believed that fully, but I still think that when you're prepared, it is really good. But then recently, I've realized that sometimes the opportunity may come, and then you prepare to meet it. You see the opportunity coming from far away, and then you have to do everything you can to hold it by its neck and then put it down. So yeah, that has been me, and this has been another input in the Diaries of a Diasporan. Thank you for listening. The last time I didn't say this, but please like, share, and subscribe. Oh my god, this is so cringe. But yes, please like, share, and subscribe, because I think I will start taking this thing seriously now. Last episode, it seemed like I was taking it seriously, but I didn't know. Like, after posting the video, there was overwhelming comments. Some people reached out privately, and then it was really good. Some people said they liked my wife's voice. Actually, somebody said that. I didn't want to tell you so that your head will become big. But yes, it has been nice, and I think I'll start making more inputs. It would not be a downer going forward, because this one was maybe a little bit of a heavy topic, or too long of a topic. Sorry, I just hit my mic. But we'll see how it goes. Yeah. See ya.